the situation. I'm a fixer.
Mm-hmm.
But to them, they may have felt it as an attack.
Yeah.
And without coming back and saying, here is how I felt. Well, that's not how I intended it. I remember us having a couple of scenarios where before I was going to explode, I held a second in space and I said, I don't think I'm understanding what you're trying to tell me, because what I'm understanding right now is going to make me go bananas.
Do you have a sister friend who you can talk to about your imperfections, vulnerabilities, uncensored truths, journeys, and victories? Welcome to the lounge.
Our experiences, coupled with scriptural truths, continues to mold us and shift our paradigms. The vision is to help us all lead the best lives God proposed for each individual.
We hope our stories, our conversations, and that of others allows you to view life from another lens, regardless of your season. Come on in, sisters. Let's talk.
There may be past and there may be history.
Yeah.
Where you may come as a front together, but you may be left being the one speaking and then coming out on the bad side of things.
Yeah.
Because then your spouse is not speaking up. But what I meant with that was you come together to watch him speak.
I think also it also has a lot to do with the foundation, though. I think from the start, it has a lot to do with the foundation. So one thing I've heard and one thing I've seen being successful, not all the time, but it's when from that onset, family members know that it's both of us and not one. So from either side, and it can be difficult because some family are like, we're still in control. So it makes it even harder. But if that foundation has been made that you are still family, but this is us, this is our own unit coming, being part of this one, it makes it a little lighter. I'm just thinking about somebody that has to go into a relationship where the extended family has a strong hold. What would be your advice to them? Because you've lived it. What would be your advice? Like, where would you say, start here?
I think asking the right questions and having the difficult conversations, whatever it is, from the start, because then you are going into something willingly and with open eyes. So if someone tells me I have a brother that has a disability and I've decided that whatever my brother is, I will either have to step away for a few weeks, but I am going to help my brother. I go into this marriage understanding that there is something that is coming with my spouse.
Yeah.
And that is important. And that it doesn't mean that I am important or not, but it also means I am well aware. And then later on, I think it would be unfair to say, well, you're spending time with your brother because you're helping him. What about our children? Well, I knew this before I married you.
Yeah.
So I think, again, asking those difficult conversations and then being around each other's family enough time to see the dynamic.
That is very important. And sometimes it's hard with distance. I was in a long distance relationship for a while, and sometimes it's hard being around those family, but now we don't have any excuses. We have Zoom, we have we have WhatsApp, we have the communication to hop on a call or listen to their conversations or ask to be involved in those ask to be involved in the conversations, or ask to know what's going on, ask the questions. So I think young people coming into these relationships need to you need to know. We can't give those excuses that we don't know anymore.
Right. And it's not just family. I think there's just so many other topics such as, and maybe we covered this one's financial style. What is your financial style? What is my financial style?
Yeah.
What is your thoughts on savings? What would you like to save for? How do you like to spend money?
Yes.
What kind of house do you see yourself in, 15 years into our marriage, 10 years? Even though those may be somewhat material things, but they speak to what the journey may be like.
Yeah.
And someone may say, I don't have any desire to travel the world. And I may say, well, I wanted to go to XYZ.
Yeah.
And so you start understanding, is it okay then if I go by myself? And not only that, but am I going to grow resentful? Because what I really wanted was to go with you.
Yes.
So I think there's just so many things about not only trying to explain who we are and what some of our long-term dreams are or desires, where you can say, yeah, I see myself doing that as well because I want it, not because I want to just be with you.
Yes. I think that that is, somebody called it the vision, setting a vision for your marriage right from the beginning. Even if you have to write it on a so I think it was I refer to, if I could hand it to everyone, I will. The story of marriage, it helped our marriage, and we're not even totally complete doing the book or the series. I will give it to everyone, but it helped us realize that setting a vision for what you want is super important to the end goal. We all have the goals that we set at the start of the year. Why don't we set a goal, a vision for our homes, for our marriages? Because that is going to drive a lot of things that we do, or the lot of ways that we handle different situations in the marriage. And I think this is what you've been saying, like, if we're not on the same book from the start, it doesn't get better.
Right. And I think that's the great difficulty, which is when you said, when do you know there is no going back? And so I think, again, for me, when the trust is broken, and part of building that vision is the trust. I thought this was the vision we had. And I thought that this is what we were doing together.
Yeah.
And when you start seeing that that's not what's happening, I think that's part of trust. I trusted you that we were going in this direction. And now I'm finding out that we're not. Maybe there is some valid reasons.
Yeah.
But I think that is part of the trust. Can I continue to trust you for the next 30, 40 years of our life? When I feel that the vision we had didn't really work out the way we kind of thought about it.
Yeah.
And I think another thing, and it's more taking personal responsibility on the question of, when do you come to that decision?
Yeah.
And I had to say this, I think when the desire to continue trying dies. And at that point, I think you just know there is no more. There's really no more. And it is a conscious decision. And it's a really, really hard one. Because I think your spouse may say, well, let's try therapy. Let's try this. And you may say, it's just not going to work. It would just prolong. And a lot of times when people come to decisions of divorce, it's not an overnight decision. It may be a decision that's been in the background for years, 10 years, 8 years, 5 years, because I don't think we take it lightly, because it has also devastating consequences for the children. Just in general, the dissolution of the family is a really, really hard experience to go through.
Yeah.
But it's one that doesn't happen overnight.
So what are the signs you will say people should be aware of, so it doesn't, because I don't think anybody goes into marriage saying, I want a divorce, or I want us to get a divorce at some time. Nobody goes into that with that intention. But what are the signs that you will say, if you start saying this, it is a red flag that you need to do this, or you need to do something, or something needs to change?
I think when there is complacency, because I think a good relationship takes effort, and it doesn't mean it has to be hard, but it requires going to places that are hard to go to. And so when you start seeing that, I think your spouse doesn't want to go to those places. And when I say places, is those conversations that are hard. I also think when they start becoming very defensive, they no longer see you as on their side. They see you against them. And that's I think a really, really difficult one, because then it becomes less of how can we do this together, and more of a power struggle. And so at that point, you're not trusting the intent of the other person. So I think that once you start becoming defensive, there is an immediate breakdown of trust. And I have to sit with that for a moment. And the reason why I say that is, we may have the best of intents when we call out our husband on something, because we want to fix the situation. I'm a fixer. But to them, they may have felt it as an attack. And without coming back and saying, here is how I felt. Well, that's not how I intended it. I remember us having a couple of scenarios where before I was going to explode, I held a second in space and I said, I don't think I'm understanding what you're trying to tell me, because what I'm understanding right now is going to make me go bananas. And so I said, I'm just going to ask you to rephrase what you meant. And so then it was like, okay, now I feel foolish. Not that that's always the case, but I would say, as soon as you start feeling that you're against each other versus trying to fix something, I think that that's definitely a red flag.
I totally agree.
So what would you then advise that 26-year-old, well, maybe we shouldn't say on the day of the wedding, but what would you, I know you said, you thought you were more mature and, you married later than your mother, so that should have helped. But at the same time, in retrospect, what would you then tell that 26-year-old self of yours, and probably other people, and they might not be 26, they might be 45 or 36 and still have that feeling?
I would say go through a few hard things together, because I think that shows a lot of each person's character. Going through a hard time and seeing if they're going to show up for you the way that you expected them to show up. Having really difficult conversations where you get to subjects that are important to you, even as simple as, what do you expect me, or what do you expect our relationship to be from a sexual standpoint? What is the expectation? Okay. Because those are things that are super important. And I don't think I hope we do now. Back then we didn't. But I would say just really understanding and not being afraid to go through the tough conversations. The easy ones are easy to have. But understanding each other's communication style, I think, is big. Yeah, I would say, and again, I go back to there is no rush. I think the more you get to know each other, and when we have people that say, hey, I was engaged or with my boyfriend or partner for 5, 6, 7 years, great. Hopefully you've gone through many cycles of a year and through many experiences that allow you to understand if this is a person you want to build a lifelong partnership with.
How is life after divorce?
There's many layers to that question.
I know. I heard it. I said it, and then I'm like,
right after divorce, it's awful. Because that's where I would say for me, I think I had a high for about 3 months where I'm like, oh, I feel great. And then it hit me like a truck. I had the worst depression I've had in my entire life. And it was one I felt in my gut, and it was just awful. Because I think the question of what have I done comes to mind. And even though you may have felt sure at the beginning, there is the transition between not having someone around the house that has been there for 18 years. The space feels different. If you have shared custody with your kids, then what happens when the kids are not with you and you're alone with yourself?
Wow. Yes.
Which you haven't done for a while. I think, there are some difficult parts. And then there is this amazing journey of growth. And so when you understand my future is not tied to another person. Whatever I'm going to do for myself. And if I ever get to a point where I want to have somebody else in my life, they will add to my life versus depend on me, or, it's a different vision. It's trying to understand who I am.
Yeah.
Many, many weeks and months and years of therapy and trying to have these conversations that I would usually have in my head with someone. So I think I'm at a point where, I have said, I'm okay being just with myself. And I do have my list of, if someone came into my life, I enjoy companionship. So I don't want to say, I don't want to be alone forever. But I want to have companionship in the way I want to have it. So now it's great.
No, but I'm glad I'm glad I asked the question, and I'm glad you took time to just walk through the stages, because I think
walks through the stages.
Yes, because sometimes
one comes out on the other side.
Yes,
some people just stop at the first stage and that's it, and they can't move past it. This is the beautiful part of it, when you get to the other side.
Yeah. And I think some people just because they don't know what to expect, that the fear of not knowing decapitates them even worse. So I am glad you're able to walk through that people don't think that, okay, if I say I'm going to be divorced, it's going to be better right away. It's going to be the best. It's going to be, I'm alone and I can be by myself. There, you're hurting. You're hurting getting out, and you that hurt is there when you get out. It doesn't, there's things that just don't vanish or go away.
And I would add a few more things, which I think is important for people to know, because I'm still working through them. You may lose the friends that you've had throughout your entire marriage. And that's not something that we necessarily anticipate. I think my mom told me, just be aware that those that were your friends as a married couple may go with one side or the other. Just be prepared for whatever that may be. And so for me, the experience has been that it's also a very lonely place.
Mm-hmm.
And for many of us women, I know this was my experience because I took the initiative, then I also have to take the blame. And so when the story comes out and you say, she is the one who wanted the divorce, then the sympathy goes to the person that's on the other side, whether they were equally a contributor to the situation, the sympathy may not come to you. And so it can be an extremely lonely place. So you may have to find other, rely on other people, make new friends, leave, be grateful for what was and be grateful for what is and may be in the future. But you also may have to mourn friends and mourn the family that you were a part of. And so there is a lot of mourning. And then the only other thing I would say, practically, you have to learn how to snow blow and cut the grass, fix the toilet, and all these things of home maintenance that maybe the first year you end up crying because you don't know how to do it, and there was a man in the house to take care of them. So they were here for a reason.
Yes.
But doing it alone is also not easy. So when anybody thinks it'll be much better, it may be better, but it's not easy.
Yeah. Thank you. I really appreciate those points. It's the reality, and that is what we want to bring out in this episodes, because there's some of those things we don't know. We just don't know because we don't talk about them. We don't talk to other people. Sometimes we're so bent on sympathizing or empathizing with those people that we don't get to know what they're actually going through. So sometimes we're not even helping them. We're just making it worse, because I might come to you and say, yes, Judith, I know it's hard, I know, but I really don't know what you going through. I really don't know what's hurting. So this is eye-opening. One last thing I want to ask before we conclude. Forgiveness. How important is it? Or have you even got there?
I've always thought that resentment, so I'll start with resentment, gives somebody else or someone else a hold of your being. And so the sooner you forgive, the sooner you let go. So it's a gift to myself to forgive. I always say I don't want to carry hate in my heart. Very early on, maybe at the age of about 17, I decided I'm not going to carry hate in my heart. I think, and this is cliche, there is a difference between forgiveness and forgetting. And so I may not forget the things I felt I went through. I will not forget the things I did, because I'm sure I may need to be forgiven as well. Again, it's a marriage and it takes two people. So I had my own faults. But I think once you get to a point where you can say, I really want the other person to be happy and genuinely happy, you understand that there is a level of forgiveness that goes beyond just forgiving, which is I hope you're happy and you find happiness. And so I think, yes, I've reached that point where I do wish my ex happiness. We still co-parent, so I think both of us being happy is good for the kids, and I think that comes with not being resentful with each other. So I think there has to be forgiveness.
How long did it take you to forgive yourself?
Wow. You had to ask that question. It's easier to talk about forgiving others than it is to talk about forgiving myself. And I think because I see maybe the brokenness that came out of the situation. I had other things that I had said. I knew my ex-husband didn't want to experience, so he didn't want to get divorced. And the fact that I took the step to do it, I think I've gotten to the point where I've forgiven myself, because I heard this recently. This happened to us, and it's something that we tried the best we could with what we knew at the time. And so it's okay to say we tried and it didn't work. And also, I think the reason why I say there is forgiveness is because I'm going to bring this up. I know I'm forgiven by God.
Yes.
And so if God forgives me, then I need to forgive myself.
Yeah.
And so the forgiveness comes in how I think I can help others, or be there for them based on my experience. So I also say, if God allowed me to experience this, what did I learn that I can share with others? And the diamond that was created from the pressure I went through is that now when somebody else is going through a divorce, I make sure I'm there for them. I make sure I show up, because I know how hard it was for me to go at it alone and feel guilty and feel shame. That the gift for me is, that's a diamond I give everybody, is like, here is the best I can give to you, is keeping you company and being there.
That is, thank you. I can see it took a lot to say all of that, and you're still healing in the process. Yes, I can see that. And I am, thank you for doing this. Thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you for being open. And thank you for letting your heart out. It's, and I'm glad Lucia asked that question, because forgiving ourselves is hard. And it might not even be just our marriages. Forgiving ourselves for some of the things that we think we have, it is just us that is going through it, is hard. That's why I constantly have to tell myself that, like you said, if God has forgiven me, and he made that available to me even before I was born, even before I existed, God said, I have forgiven you and I love you for who you are right now. Right now means whatever mess I'm in, God still loves me. He will not like the mess, but he still loves me for who I am, because he made me like him. So I am happy that you were able to be that rock for somebody else that just needs to hear that I am here for you in your state, in your right now, because that is exactly what Jesus will do. That he will be there for whoever needs him to be there. So thank you for doing that, for being so open.
Well, thank you. It was so easy to be open with both of you. And not something I talk about a lot, but I think it's important to share our experiences, the good, the bad, and the ugly, right?
Yes.
There is a lot of good, and there is challenges, and then there is the not so pretty part of it. And knowing all of that, I think hopefully makes somebody think of whatever path they're taking, that it may be difficult. But I also think relying on your faith and understanding that there is a learning and also something to give on the other side.
Yes. Yes. That's the beauty of, I think somebody said, I remember when we started this podcast, we asked Lucia's mom to pray over what we're doing. And she said, if I remember correctly, she says, God will cause beauty to come out of the pain of the stories of others that will heal them. And I think she was talking about, was it Haggai or Zephaniah? One of the two. I haven't marked. Huh?
In Malachi.
It was in Malachi, but one of those prophets, like the beauty of the pain. So, and I think you refer to it as a diamond. And that is what it brought me to remember, that when you think about diamond, it doesn't come out pretty at all. It comes up with so much, it has so much refining that it has to go through for it to come to that beauty that it is. And even when it gets to that, for it to belong to somebody else, or for it to bring joy to that other person, it goes through a long process, but at the end, it is beautiful. So thank you. I really took a lot from this, and I am so looking forward to the people that it will help. Help in the fact that we know how to interact with somebody that is going through a divorce, how they got there, and all the stories will not be the same at all, but a glimpse of what they can be feeling and how we can help and what we can even pray for them for.
Exactly. And I would want to say too, as part of my ending, it'll end as it begun. If you can be anything, be kind. Mm-hmm. Really, that's all it takes. You don't even have to support them in a big way. Yeah. Just be kind. Just a text, just hi, or whatever it is, because that goes a long way. It really does.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for sending your kindness to come on the show.
Well, with two kind people, how would I not?
Well, thank you so very much, Angie. We appreciate you, and we pray blessings over your life. We pray blessings over the life of your children, and we pray that whatever you put your hands to prosper, like this part of your journey, becomes a beautiful diamond that you can look at and say, there's beauty in this pain. And we pray that you continue to forgive yourself. Pray that you continue to walk through that process of forgiveness for yourself, and that your kindness, that I can see that you are really a kind person, that your kindness, others see it in you, and others get to experience that through you, and you be a light to them. I pray for vision and protection over you. Mm-hmm. And God bless you.
Thank you from my heart. I think when there is complacency, because I think a good relationship takes effort, and it doesn't mean it has to be hard, but it requires going to places that are hard to go to. And so when you start seeing that, I think your spouse doesn't want to go to those places. And when I say places, is those conversations that are hard. I also think when they start becoming very defensive, they no longer see you as on their side. They see you against them. And that's a really difficult one, because then it becomes less of how can we do this together, and more of a power struggle. And so at that point, you're not trusting the intent of the other person. So I think that once you start becoming defensive, there is an immediate breakdown of trust. go through a few hard things together, because I think that shows a lot of each person's character. Going through a hard time and seeing if they're going to show up for you the way that you expected them to show up. Having really difficult conversations where you get to subjects that are important to you.
Reminder, you have what it takes, you just have to say it. Be a student. Only you can do what you're created to do. Visit our website, www.sistersLetsTalk.com. That is www.sistersLetstalk.com. Ask a question, leave a comment, or let us know how you're holding up. Subscribe to Sisters Let's Talk wherever you listen to podcasts. We want you to be the first to know when another episode is ready. One tiny favor, sis. Let's invite other sisters to the lounge.